Boy, do I ever owe you an apology on that one. I snoozed for 3 minutes. Actually, I wasn't snoozing. I was looking at something. Yeah, I'll let you in on it. It's Wednesday, midweek. I'm Charles Freedman. This is the Charles Freedman radio program. News talk from 9 to noon here on SantaCruzVoice.com. Reach the program at 831-265-5050. Gosh, Rudy, I forgot to... oh, well, hang on a second. Now I've got to... Listen to the music for a second. I got to bring up the phone. Okay, just one last little tweak here, and away we go. Okay.
You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
All right. Now we can begin. Okay, let's start with a bit of house cleaning. Yesterday, we had one call to the program, and the caller kind of blindsided me. I was asked about a pardon that President Trump had issued to some Central American drug lord. I didn't know a thing about it. Well, evidently he was getting his news from online. I'm getting my news from the paper. The story is in today's paper. So Evan was absolutely right, and the pardon did occur, and he was asking me what I thought of it, and I was reluctant to comment on it, not knowing anything, because the way he presented the pardon, it sounded, if you should pardon the expression, unpardonable. It didn't sound like the sort of thing that a reasonable observer could defend. And today, as I learn more about it, I find that my initial reaction was pretty much spot on. This one is extraordinarily difficult to defend. Let me share with you a piece of analysis that I find pretty convincing. President Trump, like other politicians, sometimes does something unpopular in order to please his base. Well, we've seen him do that before. That's nothing unusual. But goodness gracious, what's the audience for Mr. Trump's pardon of former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez? He was sentenced in 2024. Sentence was 45 years in prison after a federal jury in New York found him guilty of participating in a conspiracy to traffic 400 tons of cocaine to the United States, and he did not offer to share. The jury heard the testimony of Juan Orlando Hernandez and saw right through his polished demeanor. Judge Kevin Castle told the court during last year's sentencing they saw him for what he was, a two-faced politician hungry for power, who presented himself as a champion against drugs, gangs, murders, crimes, and drug trafficking, but secretly protected a select group of drug traffickers. Those 400 tons of cocaine, transshipped via Honduras, were worth $10 billion in the U.S. In 2013, El Chapo Guzman, head of the Sinaloa cartel, paid a $1 million bribe to Hernandez and his campaign, directly delivered to Hernandez's brother, the judge said. While the former Honduran leader wasn't accused of a direct role in the conspiracy's killings, he knew and understood that violence that accompanies drug trafficking and facilitates trafficking. He knowingly facilitated this violence. That's the voice of the federal judge who presided over the trial, saw the evidence, and supervised the jury. So why did Mr. Trump decide to set this guy free? I was asked by Honduras. Many of the people of Honduras, they said it was a Biden setup, Mr. Trump told a reporter Sunday on Air Force One. They basically said he was a drug dealer because he was the president of the country. And they said it was a Biden administration setup. And I looked at the facts and I agreed with them. Would the president care to elaborate to a perplexed public, including Republicans on Capitol Hill? The Trump administration is saying that illegal drugs are a threat serious enough to justify U.S. military strikes on alleged trafficking boats in the Caribbean. It's also trying to push out Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. Why would we pardon this guy and then go after Maduro for running drugs into the United States? Asks Republican Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. Lock up every drug runner. Don't understand why he's being pardoned. Mr. Hernandez pleaded for clemency in a letter to Mr. Trump dated October 28th. I have found strength from you, sir. Your resilience to get back in that great office, notwithstanding the persecution and prosecution you faced. All for what? Because you wish to make your country great again. Like you, I was recklessly attacked by radical leftist forces. The White House denied that Mr. Trump saw this fawning message before he announced the pardon last week, but the letter was reportedly passed along to him by Roger Stone, the Beltway gadfly who Mr. Trump pardoned in his first term after a conviction for lying to Congress. Meanwhile, the results of Sunday's presidential election in Honduras remain too close to call. Mr. Stone had argued on his blog that a well-timed pardon for Mr. Hernandez could help prod the election in a direction favorable to American interests. What a strange turn of events. Perhaps Mr. Trump thinks he's playing geopolitical chess, but he has a long record of high susceptibility to flattery. And his pardon without explanation undermines the rule of law and the prosecutors who put Mr. Hernandez away. Which convicted criminals will be next to discover that praising Donald Trump's magnificence is a get-out-of-jail-free card? Is this the way it actually went down? It looks plausible. And when something like this is being done, the president owes it to himself, as well as to the American people, to lay his cards on the table. He says here, they said it was a setup. I looked at the facts. I agreed with them. Okay, what facts, Mr. President? What convinces you? You're saying that this court proceeding, this conviction, was not legitimate. Trumped up evidence, a setup, you say. I was framed. It happens. It could be. Let's see the proof. When the courtroom proceeding was held, you asked proof beyond reasonable doubt. I'll give you the same standard, Mr. President. Proof beyond reasonable doubt. Let's see it. And if it's there, then why didn't you show it in the first place and avoid these innuendos? And as for this note that the guy sent, oh my God, what a lickspittle this fellow is. And the White House denied Mr. Trump saw this message, but the letter was reportedly passed along to him by Rogers. There are certain people in Trump world who, if I were Mr. Trump, I'd recognize that these people, they think I'm just wonderful, but they're not too tightly wrapped. Steve Bannon comes to mind instantly. And I noticed that early in his first administration, Donald Trump pretty much cut off contact with Steve Bannon. Smart move. He has not treated Roger Stone in the same fashion. He probably should. Mr. Stone is also somewhat of a loose cannon, the type of person, the type of supporter who, by his conduct and statements, can embarrass you. And this happens. I mean, we've all seen it happen in politics and personal life. Somebody's trying to be your defender, trying to speak up for you, and in so doing, they make you look bad. They make themselves look bad, and they make you look bad. Maybe they're just not ready for prime time. But you wind up wishing that they were in the next county. Now, when you're a national political leader, such people tend to multiply. And it's a problem. I mean, how do you tell your supporters, shut up? It's a hard thing to do. The one politician who I always thought did a pretty good job with it was Ronald Reagan. Now, he had seen what happened to his political champion, Barry Goldwater. Reagan was one of Goldwater's strongest supporters in 1964. And Goldwater had been embarrassed time after time by some of his more exigent supporters. When Reagan ran for governor of California a couple of years later, there were left-oriented journalists, all eager. I mean, just this was what they were going to do. They were going to tie Reagan to right-wing loons, the John Birch Society, the Klan, you name it. So one day this came up. Mr. Reagan, we understand that you're being supported by, and he named a couple of the usual suspects. How do you feel about that? And Reagan said, well, I'm in the business right now of running for office, running for governor of California. And when you're running for office, you're seeking votes. And I'm not going to tell anybody I don't want your vote. I want every single vote I can get. I'd like to get every vote. But I want to make one thing clear. Any person who decides to support me does so because they have decided to support me, my program, my ideas, my platform, not because I am supporting theirs. It was pretty much the end of that issue. But then again, that's what happens when you have a really talented, incredibly capable politician doing things. Goldwater never managed to handle it that well. Goldwater suffered a lot from that type of guilt by association nonsense, and Trump does too. And some of it, from what I can see here, maybe this is one of these instances where he's actually been complicit in it. We need more information. And the president should realize that if he decides to pardon a drug dealer, at the same time he's going after the position of another Latin American drug dealer, head of state. I mean, this is the whole rationale for taking down Maduro. I mean, fentanyl instead of cocaine, but it's just the same. He's being charged with being our cartel master and a huge drug trafficker. Held responsible, for thousands of deaths here in the United States of America. I admit being moved the other day when it was made clear to me just exactly how many deaths. In a recent year, 2023, over 100,000 Americans died from fentanyl overdoses. Or was it just fentanyl, or was it drug overdoses? I don't have the report in front of me, but anyway, 100,000 deaths laid to illicit drugs. And in the same sentence, it reminded me that in 10 years of fighting in Vietnam, we lost about 55,000. So in 1 year, the drug disaster cost this country twice the number of people we lost in Vietnam over the entire period. I mean, my jaw hit the floor. This is huge. So when the president says we have the legal right to pressure Maduro to blow up his drug boats, etc., all of this is quite praiseworthy. But Mr. Trump steps all over his own messaging when he issues a pardon to another drug dealer, another drug pusher, another drug trafficker. And this is no street dealer either. What is it here? 400 tons of cocaine? Let me see. Yep, 400 tons. Cocaine is sold by the gram, incidentally. So you can figure out how many tons. Oh, jeez. My mind boggles. So again, if you're going to embark on behavior like this, Mr. President, you owe it to yourself and the country both to justify yourself, explain yourself. If you're convinced that this was an improper conviction, you're convinced that the judge and the jury made a mistake, tell us why. Don't just say, well, they said it was a Biden setup, but I didn't like it. That is insufficient. Inquiring minds want to know. Well, before we move on to any other things, let's give the president credit where credit is due. This is another thing having to do with drugs. This time, good drugs, the kind that actually cure people of maladies. President Trump struck a deal on Monday with the government of the United Kingdom that will raise drug prices over there in return for a reprieve on tariffs. It's a good deal. Both sides can claim a victory while mitigating self-inflicted damages to their countries. The president has long complained, with some justification, that other developed countries free ride on U.S. innovation and consumers by requiring manufacturers to sell drugs to government-run health systems at steep discounts. Drug makers then sell medicines at higher prices in the U.S. to make a profit so they can invest in new drugs. It's also true that Americans have access to more drugs more quickly than people in countries where governments negotiate prices with manufacturers. That is, governments give manufacturers a take-it-or-leave-it payment offer. About 85% of new medicines launched between 2012 and 2021 are available in the United States. 85%. Only 59% in the United Kingdom. Brits notably can't get many novel cancer medicines because their National Health Service rations drugs based on the arbitrary calculation called quality adjusted life years. This metric is supposed to represent the drug's cost effectiveness. The lives of the sick and elderly are valued less in the price equation than those of the young and healthy. I'm going to get back to that presently. In practice, this means the government won't cover drugs for very sick people or old people. A backlash against this rationing is growing as the NHS denies its citizens access to life-saving cancer drugs, the metastatic prostate cancer drug Pluvicto, because the government doesn't deem the cost effective. Such cost controls also exact an economic cost. Great Britain was once a life science hub, but manufacturers like Merck and AstraZeneca have pulled back investments because of price controls. Why would a drug maker develop or manufacture a drug in a country where people won't be allowed to take it? Enter President Trump, who has struck a deal that will give the Labour government cover to pay more for medicines, a not easy sell amid its budget ailments and proposed tax increases. The UK government will pay 25% more for new medicines and raise its QALY calculation. The NHS will also reduce the rebates that drug makers are expected to pay. In return, President Trump has agreed to exempt medicines, their ingredients, and medical devices made in the UK from his mooted pharmaceutical tariffs and refrain from targeting UK pharmaceutical pricing structures in any future Section 201 investigation for the duration of his term. The tariff relief will spare the U.S. pharmaceutical industry and consumers, not only the Brits. This is a far superior outcome for Americans than Mr. Trump's most favored nation proposal to import foreign price controls and rationing regimes like the UK's that discriminate against the old, sick, and disabled. Mr. Trump is going to use wheeled tariffs As a tool of diplomacy, the goal should be to fix long-standing trade irritations, not merely ameliorate the negative side effects caused by his tariff barrage. More on this topic of the National Health Service in just a moment. Says here we lost our phone connection. Wonder if that's true. I'll work on it for a moment. Here's the ads.
Handcrafted art, crafts, jewelry, antiques, toys, plus food and so much more. The Holiday Craft and Gift Fair returns just in time for unique shopping this Friday and Saturday, noon till 9 p.m. at the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. Your gift fair admission allows you to walk through Sparky's holiday lights each evening. The Holiday Craft and Gift Fair this Friday and Saturday at the Fairgrounds. Information and tickets available at fairgrounds-foundation.org.
Hey Warren, you know it's been a while since I've been up to your showroom and garden center in Scotts Valley. Maybe the folks out there might want to know where you are.
Absolutely. To find Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box Company, just head up into beautiful Scotts Valley. We're at 46 El Pueblo Road, next door to Scarborough Lumber and the beautiful nursery. And when it comes to wood items, we have It's All About Wood gift shop. And of course, the Knox Garden Box. Lots to look at. We'd love to see you at Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box store. Okay, thanks, folks.
Get hooked up with affordable cannabis at your locally owned Hook Outlet, where everybody above the age of 21 can participate in the Hook's loyalty program. Each purchase earns you 2% store credit on your next purchase. Get hooked up with the best cannabis at affordable prices at the Hook Outlet in Capitola and Watsonville, or order online at hookoutlet.com. Get hooked up at the Hook.
Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
Satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
Okay, we're back. Let's reconnect the phones. Hopefully this will happen quickly.
You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
All right, we are back in business. I don't know what caused that to go down, but this time it actually had something on the screen that said, "Hey, you lost the connection." Normally it doesn't do that. It just drops and doesn't say a word to me, so I never know about it. So this is an improvement. Okay, speaking of improvements, we're going to talk for a moment about Britain's national health. This quality adjusted life years, QALYs. This is the name they give to the device they use to ration health care. And this is something that domestic arguers here in America, people who put forward, national health insurance in America, single-payer health care, the vision they present is kind of like the Zoran Mondani thing. When he says, all buses will be free. Just get on and ride. Don't have to pay a penny. It's as if buses fall from heaven and magically appear. Well, obviously, the buses themselves cost money. They have to be maintained. They have to be fueled, whether they're using electricity or hydrogen or diesel fuel, whatever. You need to pay for it. And what about the people? Every bus has to have a driver. And at the terminals, there are people there who clean up and maintain, etc. All of this has to be supported somehow. They don't tell you about that. They just leave you to think. This is why I think young people are so susceptible, because they still have this fairy tale notion in their heads that things can simply appear out of nowhere. And healthcare, Well, it just appears. There are doctors, there are nurses, there are hospitals, and they're just there. And when you want them, you go and you use them, and you don't have to pay anything for them because you already paid for it when you paid your taxes. The problem is, if you're going to administer the program in this fashion, your costs are going to skyrocket. And the way that's brought under control is through rationing. But you never use that term. You never say we're going to ration health care. Here in Great Britain, they use the quality adjusted life years. And this is supposed to be a way of looking at how old you are, your pre-existing conditions, to use another buzzword that we constantly hear, and decide whether or not giving you treatment is a good bet or is worthwhile. Is there somebody else over here who is a little younger than you, a little less ill than you? Better to give him the treatment, better to give him the pharmaceuticals than you, because you have pre-existing conditions or you're unduly old or whatever. Well, this is the reality of single-payer health care. And this is why I think so many people are attracted to it. Nobody bothers to tell them this. The utopian image is very clear and present. Look, all the health, all the pharmaceuticals, all the procedures, everything. Everybody gets everything. Once again, this is a utopian construct. And there is no utopia. Not on this earth. Why does healthcare continue to cost more? Well, because it's continuing to get better and better, that's why. We look at something like cancer today, we say, oh, well, we've got drugs and we've got treatments now that help people survive cancer. They can maybe survive with the cancer. If the cancer cannot be cured, maybe we can stall it off for a number of years. I mean, if you've got, say you're a guy like me, you're 74 years old. Somebody tells you you have cancer. Well, in the old days, it would have been, okay, you've got 6 months or a year, that's it. Nowadays, they could say to me, well, you're 74, you're in fairly good health. We have these drugs and these procedures. We can suppress this cancer. You can live another 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and get around pretty much the way you do. But, you still have this cancer, but it's not going to kill you. It's not going to debilitate you. And you say, hey, great, that's, X numbers of extra years of enjoyable life for me. That's wonderful. I love that. But those treatments, 30, 40 years ago, that wasn't available at all. So obviously you weren't going to spend any money on it because it didn't exist. Nowadays, we can say, oh, hey, we have all these wonderful ways of helping to prolong your life. But these drugs, many of them have cost tremendous sums. I mean, when Merck or Johnson & Johnson or these other pharmaceutical companies, how do they develop new drugs? They have to maintain, first they have to, construct and maintain state-of-the-art laboratories with equipment that is tremendously sophisticated and obviously very expensive. But wait, there's more. What good is the laboratory without the people to run it? I've often made the point that, what was it, the beginning of 2020, President Trump said, we'll have a vaccine for COVID by the end of the year. Well, did President Trump put on a white coat, go into a lab, and make that happen? Hell no. He doesn't know anything about how to formulate new drugs. No, rather instead, it was a considerable number of extraordinarily talented, well-educated and very highly paid specialists. The type of people who know what they see when they look through an electron microscope. And these people, in a period of 9 months, actually developed and presented us with a COVID vaccine. Wow, that's hot stuff. But it didn't simply fall from heaven. It cost a lot of money, both in terms of those lab facilities and in terms of the people who made use of them. So these procedures and pharmaceuticals that are available today that weren't available when I was a kid have driven up healthcare costs, have also extended the length and quality of our lives. So, it's a trade-off. Everything's a trade-off. But when you put it that way, you say, well, how much of this are you willing to give for that? Oh, you're bargaining with human life. Well, I'm sorry, but yeah. And that's what the British National Health System does on a daily basis. Say, well, I'm sorry, but you don't qualify for this treatment. This fellow over here has a better score on our analysis than you do, so go out there and enjoy what's left of your life. So long. Here in America, that person has more options. And that's because we have a healthcare system here that operates still on at least a semi-market basis, rather than one where it's simply been completely taken over by the government and all the doctors are government employees and all the hospitals are government run. I mean, look at it this way. If you are sick, would you like to be cared for by the people at the DMV? I don't know how I can put it any plainer than that. The trouble is that, I will say, okay, you have two systems here, both of which have flaws. The market system is better than the other. But the other guy says, oh no, your market system has flaws, but this state system, it's perfect. It's utopian. Everybody gets what they want every day. And that's a lie. That is a flat lie. The only way you can make that happen, conceivably, is by raising taxes so high as to completely shut off all economic activity. They found out about that a few years ago in the state of Vermont. Vermont, this is the state that elects Bernie Sanders to the U.S. Senate. Vermont voters are very left-wing. So it's no surprise when a cat got elected governor of Vermont. I can't remember what his name was. Anyway, he's a Democrat, ran for governor of Vermont, said, elect me and we will have single-payer health care in Vermont. I will get this done for you. And he won the election. And legislature, House and Senate in Vermont got busy cobbling together a single-payer health plan for the state of Vermont. And after a considerable length of time, a number of weeks, they did so. The House and Senate passed the plan and they laid it on the governor's desk and he vetoed it. His signature issue, his campaign promise, single-payer health care, and it got done. And when they landed the proposal on his desk for his signature, having passed both houses of the legislature, he vetoed it. You might ask, well, why in the world would he do a thing like that? The answer was because even this, left-oriented governor was faced with the responsibility, the legal responsibility. He's the governor of the state. His job is to administer the state's finances. there's so much tax revenue. There are so many things that have to be done. And the governor took a look at this and says, this will bankrupt the state. Now, in this particular case, I am inclined to believe, and this is really something too, I'm inclined to believe that while he was running for office and telling people, vote for me and you'll have single-payer health care, I do not believe that he was attempting to dupe people or string them along. I don't believe he actually knew that what he was proposing was prohibitively expensive. I think he found that out in the course of obviously when the legislature was working this program up, the governor kept an eye on what was going on, stayed connected with the whole process, being responsible, being, a state executive, as he's expected to do, his constitutional responsibility. But the thing gets to his desk, and he says, I can't do this. Vermont can't do this. Now, I've got to give, as I say, I really wish I could remember who the governor was who did this. This a few years ago. I should look it up and find out. But this governor, it's a two-edged sword. On the one hand, you have to say, how could you be so naive, or to propose something like this without having done your homework and figured it out and come to realize that what you're proposing is prohibitively expensive and that it can't be done. But this, once again, is an illustration of how so many people, less sophisticated, less informed than this fellow, can be taken in by utopian rhetoric and idealism. We're going to have universal health care for everybody. Whee! In a pig's eye, you will. But he found out the hard way. Must have been awfully embarrassing, gracious. Can you imagine having run on and gotten elected, made this promise, and you work like hell and you get it through the legislature, and then you have to shoot it down yourself? You're the governor. You have to veto your own pet project. I only wish that Gavin Newsom had that kind of integrity, where he was willing to look at something in the cold light of day and say, hey, I'm sorry, but I was wrong about this. Can't be done. Okay, telephone number to reach the program, 831-265-5050, 831-265-5050, and from what I am seeing here, we still have an active phone system, so if you have something you'd like to call up and talk about, you are welcome to do that. I have, let me see here, what's the other big story right now? Well, the other big thing coming along looks like the Somali ripoff of taxpayers' dollars in Minnesota. And Governor Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who was brought to national prominence a year ago when he was tabbed by Kamala Harris to be her running mate for vice president, now is, I guess, embarrassed is a very light word for what's going on here. This is a colossal mess. And over $1 billion has been, this makes, Boss Tweed and Teapot Dome and all the other great scandals of American history, they pale into insignificance. The nation is finally awakening to an ongoing scandal of massive proportions in Minnesota, where state taxpayers have had somewhere north of $1 billion stolen from them by concentric rings of welfare fraudsters based in and around Minneapolis' tightly knit Somali community. It's a story with deeper implications than the mere loss of dollars and cents, one that implicates our national immigration policy, among other things. But let's first note the depth of the fraud and how long it was ignored by the media at large. This is one of those stories that we are learning about today, right now in real time. But this story has actually been out there for some time. It's just that they won't report it. Was it just yesterday? I was complaining on this program about the scandalous behavior of the media being responsible for the downfall of the republic. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Here we go. I'm sorry, hang on a second. There we go. In September 2022, the federal government began to indict multiple sets of some Minneapolis area Somali Americans on charges of defrauding Minnesota welfare and public assistance programs. I underline once again, these indictments began in September of 2022. That's before the last midterms, for God's sake. First came the Feeding Our Future scandal, where, to date, 75 defendants associated with the Somali charitable organization allegedly chose to feed on the sudden flood of post-2020 COVID-era relief money. And we did see some stories at the time about, all these floods of cash coming out of Washington, a lot of it being siphoned off by fraudsters. Well, here's a case in point. To anyone willing to claim a vaguely rational cause, Feeding Our Future was able to hoover up millions of dollars of COVID funding with the promise of providing school lunches to disadvantaged children in the Twin Cities Somali community. The FBI raided their fake meal locations in January of 2022. Federal indictments have been piling up since then, but this turns out to have been only one of multiple government fraud schemes emerging from the Twin Cities Somali community during the COVID era. On September 18th, federal prosecutors dropped the first in a wave of indictments against 8 defendants for defrauding the state's Housing Stabilization Services program to the tune of hundreds of millions. There are more webs of fraud yet to untangle, and it seems they penetrate the entire Somali community. A report by Ryan Thorpe and Christopher Rupo over at City Journal caught President Trump's attention and led him to blow the story up with a move to revoke temporary protective status for all Somalis. Now that the scandal's been dignified over the weekend with a New York Times investigative article, one that specifically notes Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's responsibility for a method of fraud that took shape and flight under his administration. Leftist America is officially permitted to notice the matter, although it won't draw the correct conclusions. Career prosecutor Joe pardon me. What you got?
No, I just got to get mine.
Career prosecutor Joe Thompson, who has the federal lead on the cases, has said this fraud crisis didn't come out of nowhere. It's the result of widespread failure across nearly every level of leadership in Minnesota. Politicians who turn a blind eye, agencies that fail to act, prosecutors and law enforcement who didn't push hard enough, reporters who ignored the story, community leaders who stayed silent, and a public that wanted to believe it couldn't happen here. This isn't just a few criminals exploiting a system. This is a system begging to be exploited. He added, if we keep ignoring the truth, we're going to lose something far more important than money. We're going to lose the Minnesota we know and love. The unpleasant reality is that we imported an element of Somalia's culture of criminality, and for no good reason. While bogus charges of racism were used to keep suspicious authorities from following up on the blatant signs that something was amiss, there are certain countries around the world that it is reasonable for the president to say, and I believe the president does have the legal authority under current immigration law to say we will not accept immigrants from this particular country. Libya is such a place. Right now I would say Somalia is definitely such a place. And it pains me because as I say this, I'm constantly reminding myself that one of the handful of people, if I was going to name the 5 greatest people in the world today, one of those 5 would be Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Now, when she has a piece published, you hear it read on this program. I have respect going to veneration for this woman, for her courage, for her integrity, for her intelligence. This is the best humanity has to offer. Where is she from? Somalia, that's right. But she is a rare exception. Most Somalis, unfortunately, are a product of, as it says here, quote, a culture of criminality. The scandal raises the question, what does America owe to those who seek to immigrate here? Surely we as a nation are not commanded to accept an endless influx of people from third world countries with cultures inimical to Western values, merely because they're refugees from something. What cases are to be made for admitting them in large numbers enough to recreate the cultural pathologies they escaped, only in miniature? The answers to these questions from the left and libertarian open border types tend to be saccharine cliches that have failed the test of reality in Minnesota. This from the National Review. But there are other pieces today that you can read that have to do with this particular story. Let me see, what's the latest? Oops, got that backwards. Now, President Trump, the big story here is now Trump discouraging Somali immigrants. Well, that's kind of like closing the barn door after the horse is gone. On the other hand, bear in mind that a lot of these people were admitted to this country before President Trump returned to office. I noted in this piece that we just concluded, indictments and investigations were going on as early as 2022, but that was when Joe Biden was running things, and neither he nor Tim Walz had any interest in revealing the malefactions of this immigrant community. Rather, instead, they're attempting to whitewash the whole thing, to make it look, oh, these poor immigrants, they never do anything wrong. They're all just a bunch of poor, hardworking folks who are trying to get along. No, they're not all that. And they're not all crooks either. I keep coming up with the idea, why don't we judge people individually? But I make the point, it's easier, a lot cheaper and quicker and everything else to simply throw them all in a bag together and say, okay, all of you get treated the same way. Because giving individual attention not only is time consuming, but it's also an imperfect system. Somebody bent on entering this country for nefarious purposes, what are they going to do? They're going to be in the business of deception. They're going to do the best they can to pull the wool over the eyes of whoever it is who's vetting them and saying, well, do we really want this person in the United States? Can the person who's doing the vetting be hoodwinked? Can they be fooled? Yes, of course they can. They're human. And that's one more argument for simply saying the odds on people from Somalia, the odds are too bad, so just put a bar on Somali immigration, which is what Mr. Trump seems to be calling for now. Hour's over. I'll be back in 6 minutes with another one. I'm Charles Freedman. Oh, yeah.
All right, quiet, please. Order in the court. Pursuant to my jurisdiction as a federal district court judge for the United States of America, I will be issuing my latest several cases that have been presented to me recently in conjunction with the actions taken by the President, Mr. Donald Trump. After considering the issues and both sides of the arguments, the court rules as follows. Firstly, with regards to the issue of the price of eggs, I order the price of eggs to return to $12 a dozen, as they were a few weeks ago. Further, I revoke any political credit Mr. Trump has received for the lowering of the price of eggs. Secondly, regarding the rescue of the so-called astronauts who were illegally brought home from the International Space Station the other week, I order them to be returned to outer space immediately. Any discussion of the astronauts being rescued by Mr. Trump, Mr. Musk, or SpaceX is to be stricken from the record. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to try and speed the rest of these up. I order the White House to continue funding biodiversity communications in Nepal and transgender operas in Guatemala and Muslim Sesame Street in Iraq. I hereby order McDonald's to permanently bring back the McRib.
Excuse me, Your Honor, could you please repeat that?
The McRib. I want the McRib. I order 5 more seasons, 5, of the Meghan Markle show on Netflix. I can't get enough of it. Really good. I order Kenny Siefkin from my 4th grade class to apologize for calling me a wiener in 1968. It's wrong then, it's wrong now. I order Israel to return all the freed so-called hostages back to Gaza. I order Donald Trump to come over and read me a bedtime story and kiss me on the forehead goodnight. And don't skip any pages in 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish, because I will know. I order Melania to consider going out on a date with me. I'm not saying she has to, go out with me per se. I just order her to give it honest consideration. That's all a guy can ask for. I order Neil Patrick Harris to come and fight me like a man. He knows what he did.
Excuse me, what did he do, Your Honor?
Oh, he knows. He knows. I order little Hitler mustaches to be drawn on all photos of Donald Trump, and maybe a pair of devil horns, or the silly glasses. Horns, glasses. Either one's fine. Also, I'd like a nice set of throw pillows. That's not an official order. It's, I just would like a nice set of those, those extra pillows for the bed, nothing fruity. That's just, something that will give my room a look of distinction. Also, I don't care for the Mormons. Do you care for the Mormons, Irene? I don't. Again, it's not an order. I want it in the official court transcript. I mean, somebody needed to say it. That's right. Donald Trump is a wimpy little girly boy, and Judge Jones could beat him in skee-ball any day of the week. Donald Trump is a dum-dum, what a dork noodle. Madam Reporter, can you read that?
Yes. Okay, Donald Trump is a wimpy little girly boy, and Judge Jones could beat him in skee-ball any day of the week. Donald Trump is a dum-dum, what a dork noodle, period.
I'm sorry, that's classic. And finally, according to the 28th Amendment, which I just made up and added to Wikipedia, I hereby appoint myself President of the United States effective immediately. I do this in order to save democracy. And I have the authority to do this because I said I have the authority. I am now the president, and the former president is no longer president. I also declare that the Constitution is null and void, and the United States will now be called Judge Jones's Playhouse. If you disagree with this ruling, you will be imprisoned. This court is adjourned.
Once again, the Babylon Bee.
Hey guys, welcome to CigarPage.com.
Commercials. Okay. Another minute before we're back. Let's see here. Something queued up for next time. Okay, hour number 2 begins. I don't know whether hour number 1 actually went out or not. Got an email from Evan. He was saying, well, you know, at 9:11, and the program wasn't on yet. I was tardy in starting this morning, and maybe the electronic gremlins that run the show decided I was dead and put on a rerun. I don't know. At any rate, there is an hour number 1 to today's show, and it's going to be on the podcast, so if you didn't get it off the air, you can get it there. For right now, hour number 2 begins. It is 10:07. I'm Charles Freedman. The telephone number to reach the program is 831-265-5050, 831-265-5050, and you still have the opportunity to be today's first caller. Avery Parrish on the piano. Erskine Hawkins playing trumpet, the 20th Century Gabriel. What a great way to open a program. Okay. Political news. We do have some election returns from yesterday. I'm kind of chastened about this. Yesterday I was nervous and hitting the panic button about a special election in Tennessee for a seat in the House of Representatives opened up by a resignation. The Republican congressman resigned to change jobs. Special election comes along, and we had polling, and I can't remember now who the organization was, but the polling showed that this race was a one-point race. 47 to 46 or something like that. In a district that Donald Trump had carried by 22 points. So, of course, we're given this huge barrage of coverage on this election, all saying, oh, the Republicans are going to lose it, the Republicans are going to lose it. Well, the Republicans did not lose it. Let's get the returns here. Matt Van Epps, Republican for Congress, defeated Democratic State Representative Afton Bain. The final results, 55 to 45 in percentages. Raw votes, 97,000 to 81,000. So this race was not close. It's a 9-point race, 54.5 to 45.5. So it's a 9-point race. 1 point shy of a landslide. As you know, we on this program have defined a landslide as 10 points or more. So a 9-point win here for the Republican. This is a comfortable win. That's good. It is less than you would normally expect a Republican to get in a district like this. That is the nature of special elections. That simply happens. There's an opportunity for people to register protest votes, etc. This, incidentally, is why I had been worried at all about the race, is because sometimes these Special elections can do weird things. But now it appears that the real lamp of inquiry should be shined on the polling organization that turned in such an outrageous result. So I went to the polling here. I noticed that the poll on this race, which was available yesterday, has now been taken down. Well, if I were that polling organization, I would run and hide too. Because, of course, the thing I wanted to know was, okay, whose poll was this? Was this Suffolk, or was this Rasmussen, or was this Harris, or was this Gallup, or who was it? It was not Rasmussen, I know that for damn sure. But to miss a result by that much, where you're projecting a 1-point margin, it turns out to be a 9-point margin. Every poll has, some error. There's no such thing as an absolutely exact. Polling is an exact science. And so we give a little slack to people who are in the business of public opinion sampling. And they publish, along with their polls, a margin of error. They say, look, our poll is accurate to within 2 points or 3 points or whatever. This is the margin of error. No poll has a 9-point margin of error. So the fact of the matter is, the inescapable truth of the matter is, this poll was, well, it was obviously woefully inaccurate, but the question is, why? And there are two possible answers. One is the poll was conducted incompetently. They simply did not do a professional job of vetting and selecting their sample to reflect the actual electorate in the district, and they came up with a lousy result on that account. But that brings up another question. Why would that be done? Is it a matter of incompetence, or is it a matter of design? You ask, well, why on earth would anybody intentionally publish an inaccurate poll? I mean, they took it down the next day. They know it's an embarrassment. What was the purpose? What would the purpose be of a poll that showed a race separated by a single point when the actual margin was closer to 10? The answer, an attempt to affect the result. The idea that if an underdog candidate, and in this district, the Democrats are an underdog, there's no question about that. So an underdog candidate all of a sudden showing, hey, this person is almost there, they can win, they're just knocking at the door. This is designed to gin up additional excitement, support, contributions, you name it. So a poll of this sort is not just a report on a prospective division of the vote. It takes on the effect of a piece of campaign propaganda. And again, a very effective one. People love a winner. People particularly love a dark horse winner, a come-from-behind winner, an upset winner. This is exciting. I mean, forget politics. This has a wow factor to it. And there's not a single one of us who hasn't from time to time rooted for such a person or thing. Wow, look at that. Came out of nowhere and won. Gee whiz, that's something. Perfectly normal to feel that way. And that is why some pollsters will publish results which they'll publish quite often the mechanics of the poll along with it. And if you are a professional pollster who knows the demographic and political background of that particular constituency, and then can say, okay, well, I'm looking at this poll, and their sample includes this percentage of people in this income group, this percentage of people in this income group, this percentage of Republicans, this percentage of Democrats, and these percentages are out of whack. These percentages don't match up with the actual population of the 7th Congressional District of the state of Tennessee. And obviously, if that's the case, then there's the reason for the error. That's the reason. But what's the excuse? Incompetence? Or a purposeful attempt to influence the result by publishing a poll designed to affect the result? And it's interesting. I got into the habit for a while of watching videos by this guy Mark Meadows. I think no, that's not his name. Anyway, he goes on for Rasmussen Reports, and Rasmussen Reports over the years has put together a record as being a pretty good pollster, pretty accurate. And this guy has kind of bugged me by coming up with stuff that's just, politically really wild. But in his capacity as a public opinion expert, he still commands respect. Today I decided to check the approval-disapproval numbers for the president. Rasmussen Reports has the president underwater by about 11 points. So by 53 to 42, the American people do not approve the job that the president's been doing. Now you have to ask yourself, how much of that is a manifestation of the constant anti-Trump harping of the media, and how much of it is due to self-inflicted wounds, such as we just discussed in the first hour? It appears the president has pardoned a guy who attempted to bring 400 tons of cocaine into the country. If the president is interested in increasing his approval rating among the American people, interested in having them give him more of a fair hearing on other issues, then why would you do something like that makes it easy for his enemies to pillory him? And it makes it impossible for supporters. I consider myself basically a supporter, although when he does something like this, I have to point out, I don't understand why. I'm willing to be convinced. The president says there's reasons for this. Okay, what are your reasons? Has it come to your attention that a terrible mistake was made, and that the judge and the jury that convicted this fellow actually acted, there was false evidence? It was all, Mr. Trump says, a Biden setup. Those are the words he used, a Biden setup. Well, we're talking about the same administration that essentially whitewashed Hunter Biden, the same administration that put forward the Trump-Russia hoax. So, yes, it's altogether possible that this conviction and all of this is bogus. But if you expect us to believe that, got to have something in the way of proof or a rationale. Got to lay it out for us. Anyway, I get a bit far afield. The big story here that we're leading off this hour with is the Republicans have retained the seat in the 7th Congressional District of Tennessee. Matt Van Epps will now go to Congress, and probably in fall, he'll be rather easily reelected in this very Republican district. The fact that Ms. Benn was able to do as well as she did I mean, 45% of the vote is still, a considerable quotient in a district where generally a Democrat is lucky to break 40. So, again, I would put this down primarily to the exigencies of special elections, but also the fact that Mr. Trump's popularity is suffering right now, and any Democrat, including Ms. Benn, who goes out and campaigns on issues of inflation and affordability, is, regardless of how fair or unfair you think that might be, nevertheless, this is something that is winning votes. And instead of criticizing the issue of affordability as a hoax, Mr. Trump would be wise to quit telling people, don't believe your own lying eyes. Prices are coming down. The president has actually said that. I shop for groceries. I know it's not true. Now, if Mr. Trump cares to explain himself to the American people, here's what we're doing, here's what the effect we expect it to have, here's how long we expect it to take. Once again, the American people, most of them anyway, will listen. Oh, there are some who can't be convinced, who simply won't be. They don't care. They hate Trump, and that's all they know. But they are outnumbered by rational people who will judge things on their own merits. Unfortunately, if those people are going into their supermarkets every week and seeing that high prices are not coming down, it's going to be rather difficult to win their hearts and minds. Time is 10:22. I'm not going to tell you who wrote this, but maybe I will when I get through, because it might come as a surprise to you. But a rather prominent American is now arguing that peace through strength, which was a hallmark of the Reagan administration, and which is also something that President Trump has talked about, peace through strength is worth paying for. What time is it in America? This is a 1939 moment, or hopefully a 1981 moment, a moment of mounting urgency. Those are the words of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He's right about the gathering threats to America's national security, but the lesson of 1939 is that fighting war is far costlier than deterring it. Defeating the Axis powers saw U.S. defense spending hit 37% of GDP. The defense budget request for fiscal 2026 shows America risks forgetting this hard-won lesson. If our goal is to make this a 1981 moment, as in the first year of the Reagan administration when underinvestment in the U.S. military was turned around, we must deliver more consistent support for defense. President Reagan's peace through strength Cold War budgets allocated about twice as much as we spend now as a percentage of GDP. The numbers, in the Reagan era, we were devoting about 6% of GDP to defense. Today, it's 3%. Today, we face many of the same significant adversaries. Spending more on defense is simply necessary. It must not be controversial. I urged President Trump at the beginning of his second term to reject calls to narrow the scope of U.S. strategic interests and to invest in the armed forces and defense industrial base. Mr. Trump rightly disregarded the advice of isolationists and conducted decisive strikes against Iran while sustaining the AUKUS partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom. The president wants the best possible military for America and has set ambitious priorities, such as a comprehensive missile defense, the Golden Dome, and a shipbuilding renaissance. I have supported him in these endeavors. But with 59 days until interim government funding runs out, it remains to be seen whether President Trump's administration and Congress will seize the moment provided by the Senate's full-year defense appropriations bill for 2026 and invest accordingly. Senior Pentagon officials have expressed a commitment to rebuilding American hard power, but others in the administration have balked at the resources required for these overdue efforts. In March, the president's budget advisors pushed the first ever full-year continuing resolution for defense, especially extending President Biden's anemic defense budget. In June, the Office of Management and Budget submitted a request for 2026 that would hold annual defense spending stagnant against inflation. In the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, administration officials then created budgetary chaos by pressing Congress to squeeze multi-year efforts like shipbuilding into a one-time spending measure using a process known as budget reconciliation. This complicated maneuver left critical programs on the cutting room floor. Pentagon leaders have since acknowledged that total 2025 shortfalls after reconciliation exceed $25 billion. Presidential priorities like the Golden Dome and restoring shipbuilding are necessary to keep America safe, but they will fall without sustained long-term investment. In recent weeks, Pentagon officials have acknowledged a $20 to $30 billion shortfall in critical munitions. Despite the complaints of senior administration officials about our limited production capacity, the administration's 2026 budget request failed even to make use of that capacity to begin addressing the issue. Pentagon leaders now seem eager to support multi-year procurement to address the challenges ahead, but these plans are wishful thinking without additional funding. By independent estimates, Golden Dome alone could cost upwards of $3.5 trillion over the next 20 years, but the program is likely underfunded even this year. The president announced his selection of a sixth-generation fighter aircraft for the Air Force, the F-47, but this program is underfunded in 2026 by $500 million. Pentagon dithering over the Navy's sixth-generation fighter, the F/A-XX, has delayed its development and led to hundreds of millions in contract extension costs. If the department made a decision, Mr. Trump could launch a program that ensures the aircraft carrier remains America's premier power projection platform for decades. The peace of military operations in the Middle East and Western Hemisphere has also exacerbated a shortfall in operations and maintenance, another consequence of the full-year continuing resolution. Combine that with the shortfall for Navy ship operations, and the total operations and maintenance shortfall likely exceeds $2 billion. These shortfalls aren't breaking news. That's why the Senate passed 77-20, a National Defense Authorization Act delivering $32 billion above the OMB request and on top of the money authorizers included in the One Big Beautiful Bill. The Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, which I chair, worked with Pentagon leaders to build in an extra $7 billion to address urgent munitions requirements. It included nearly $8 billion to address shortfalls from reconciliation and addressed billions of dollars in unfunded requirements submitted by the armed services and combatant commands. To do so, we set our top line at $21.7 billion above the administration's 2026 request. As we look ahead to conferencing this bill with the House, Congress ought to ensure that this higher allocation is what the president signs into law. Mr. Trump's advisors should encourage him to help Congress to pass a defense appropriations bill that makes the historic investments needed to restore peace through strength. A full-year bill capped at the OMB requested level, or another full-year continuing resolution, would be devastating to the U.S. military, and it would imperil the president's military legacy. So writes Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, who in this, which will be, beginning next year anyway, his last year in the United States Senate. Senator McConnell is no longer a Republican leader. He has stepped back from that position, but he is still fighting hard for his country. And in this particular instance, he is also fighting hard for a president of his own party. A president of his own party who has from time to time ridiculed and verbally assaulted him. But Senator McConnell is a grown-up, a professional politician who understands that there are times when if somebody says something you don't like, the proper thing is to just pretend you didn't hear it and go on. Because that way you can get more good done. In arguing for increased defense appropriations, Senator McConnell has aligned himself, really, with Trump administration policy. What he is now urging is effective implementation of that policy, and he's warning that if we don't accomplish that, the consequences rather, could be rather dire. It's 10:31. Let us grab an ad package. We'll go ahead and run our second one of the day. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Telephone number is 831-265-5050.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants, and at Treehouse Dispensary, we use it to build community. In addition to dispensing cannabis and education, Treehouse hosts First Friday events every month that feature our community's local artists, makers, and activists. If you're 21 plus, join us at 3651 Soquel Drive every First Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. to enjoy the work of local artists and musicians, find one-of-a-kind gifts, and learn more about the top cannabis products in California. See you soon!
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Donate your car and help veterans and their families. Yes, one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program and we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate most cars, trucks, or SUVs in most conditions. The proceeds raised goes to help active military, veterans, and their families. And you get a tax deduction. Operators are standing by. Here's the number.
800-640-9509. Again, that's 800-640-9509.
Attention content producers. You can have access to a complete digital media production facility at Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue. Easily rent video and audio equipment, a studio with green screen, editing suite, and audio booth, all at can't say no rates. Schedule a tour to see for yourself at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
Bring happiness into your holiday with a fresh and fragrant Lions Club Christmas tree. When you light up the tree, your family's smile will last into January. Pick up your tree from the Lions Club lot at the Portuguese Hall near Costco. 2 to 7 weekdays, 10 to 7 weekends. While they last. Bring happiness into your holiday with a fresh and fragrant Lions Club Christmas tree. All proceeds go to helping those in need in Santa Cruz.
At 10:33, we are just about halfway through today's presentation. I'm Charles Freedman, and it's News Talk from 9 to noon, as usual, on SantaCruzVoice.com. We're looking for today's first phone call. Go ahead and make it. As a matter of fact, there's some question as to whether or not today's broadcast is even going out on the air. So if you can hear me, take pity, call me, tell me, because I'm very, very lonesome. 831-265-5050. Do you hear this program? Okay. And for the benefit of anybody who is wondering, I will post it as a podcast. So if it's not being broadcast live, it'll be available. Why am I bothering to mention that? Because if it's not being broadcast, then you won't hear it anyway. Okay. So we'll just get back to business. I have something here from Holman Jenkins that I consider fairly interesting. It's, it's kind of a Hollywood story. Evidently, Warner Brothers is on the block, which makes me very unhappy because obviously Warner Brothers, of all the Hollywood movie studios, Warner Brothers is my favorite. I mean, you look at, MGM made many of the great movies of the period. Paramount made good films. RKO made all the Astaire Rogers musicals. Universal made all the great horror movies. But Warner Brothers, just the general tenor of their films makes them my favorite. Phil is on the line. Now, either well, let's find out what he has to say. Why live in mystery? Let's just bring him along and ask him what's going on.
Oh, I just wanted to let you know I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, good, because I had no idea.
First few minutes had me totally puzzled, but now you're there.
Okay, yeah, that was my fault. I fell asleep at the switch. I was busy reading something here, and all of a sudden I look up and it's 9 minutes past. So
you're getting even with me for the time I fell asleep during your program.
I can't blame you for that.
No, that was just fatigue. It's not the company. It's just medical conditions.
Well, I hope you feel.
I'm very active, but I do get these fatigue bouts, and if I can give in to them, I do, and if I can't, I have to push through. So that's my story.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. Anything further?
No. I mean, just I keep rethinking, the comment I made a few days ago, which is Trump has made so many blunders and decisions without justification that we're really risking this next election. I'm happy about what happened last night, but you notice the margin of victory has shrunk somewhat. So I'm wondering about districts that are more mixed, if too many of them are going to fall Democratic at the midterms.
Well, let's not forget that 4 years ago, when Mr. Trump had a midterm during his first term, it was a disaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if history's any guide, we can look forward to a rather long, dark night.
Right. Because if Congress goes Democratic, especially both houses, then it's going to pretty much halt the Trump agenda altogether.
Well, he'll still have a cell phone and a pen, so he'll be able to govern.
Yeah. Taking a line from the wrong person.
It was a bad line then, and it'd be a bad line now. I do not favor extra constitutional government. I don't care who's doing it.
Yeah. See, Obama was more clever than Trump in terms of covering his tracks, but occasionally he would slip like that and show his real mission. Like the time he said, we're going to spread the wealth around. Remember that?
Yeah, but don't forget one other very important thing. The media of this country, the broadcast networks, the newspapers, everything, were always perfectly willing to paper over any mistakes Obama made. I mean, here's a guy who sided with the Ayatollah during his first year against revolutionaries in the streets of Iran, seeking to reestablish some kind of democracy there. And he sided with the tyrant, with the dictator. And we knew about it. I mean, it was reported, but there was no big, oh my God, this is terrible. If Trump had done something like that, they'd be calling him the Antichrist.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, I was especially nonplussed about Obama releasing those impounded Iranian funds and just delivering the cash there. That was outrageous.
Yeah, according to the law, that wasn't supposed to happen until Iran was no longer on the list of state sponsors of terrorism. And Obama simply ignored that. His own State Department continued to list Iran as a state sponsor of terror, but he gave them their money back anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think Republicans need to keep harping on these things and reminding the swing voters that if they go Democratic, this is going to be the result. Because Mr. Trump is not making a good case for his regime.
Well, that's one thing he's never been good at. When he was running for re-election, he continually trod all over his own message. During the debates, he made his own conduct the major issue by, refusing to let. It's interesting, Joe Biden at that point was already declining. I was thinking, hey, just shut up and let him speak, but Mr. Trump wouldn't do that. So, in terms of vote-getting prowess, this is a guy who has never been a glowing beacon. His best performance still didn't crack 50%.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really have much to contribute today. I have been listening.
Great.
And,
well, thank you.
We'll continue to do so, at least until December 19th, and then I don't know what I'll do after that.
Oh, go on YouTube and watch every Wheeler Woolsey movie. No, don't do that. A lot of them are pretty awful.
Yeah, well, I don't have enough time to watch a lot of stuff. I love radio because it enables me to get chores done, to drive places, to wait for medical appointments, and just listen, while I'm looking at other things.
Gotcha.
So, and I've always been, this way I've always been partial to radio. I did watch a lot of TV in the early days as a kid, but yeah, I watch way less than most people.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for the call, and it's nice to know that the program is actually going out. As I say, there's from here I really never know for sure. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that settles that. And let's see. Yeah. Okay, I was going to acquaint you with a story concerning the sale of Warner Brothers. It's not the caring that's really striking. The not caring of the public, or even the traditional news media, over the fate of Warner Brothers Discovery, owner of the most hallowed movie studio in Hollywood, owner of HBO, the crown jewel of peak TV a few short years ago. The caring of the Washington political class seems limited to a residual demand among its senior citizenry to shriek media monopoly whenever a media deal is proposed. Among Los Angeles creatives, there's definite caring, but only about their own career prospects. James Cameron, director of Avatars, says a Netflix win would be a disaster. Mr. Cameron's movies are uniquely designed for the IMAX experience, not for Netflix-style home streaming. But here's what might warrant some larger caring. To the phlegmatics of Wall Street, the subject has hardly been the business merits of the potential bids, it's been the politics of currying favor with Donald Trump. On Monday, second-round bids were reportedly received from three suitors: Netflix, Comcast, and Paramount, which kicked off the auction with an earlier offer to buy the media entertainment giant. Nearly all the discussion is focused on whether any bidder not named Paramount can find a way to cozy up to Mr. Trump to offset Paramount's presumed in with the president. To start with, many believe Netflix and Comcast are bidding simply to drive up the price and prevent Paramount from getting rich Warner pickings like Game of Thrones and Harry Potter for a knockdown price aided by Trump favoritism. Paramount's pitch to the Warner board has been unsubtle: guaranteed smooth regulatory sailing and a quick payout for long-abused Warner shareholders. How so? Thanks to carefully cultivated ties between the Paramount-controlling Ellison clan, Oracle founder Larry Ellison, and movie mogul son David Ellison, and the guy in the White House, as detailed here in previous columns. I'm skeptical, but paradoxical evidence has emerged in recent days that Netflix's mostly cash bid may be sincere. In a leak to Mr. Trump's favorite outlet, the New York Post, a White House official claims to be sizing up antitrust action to derail its offer. Not even shocking anymore is certain advice from the peanut gallery to Netflix about how to counter a strike a development deal, as Amazon recently did with Melania's production company. Comcast's bid, like Netflix's, is complicated by Comcast's desire for only Warner's streaming and studio assets, not its lagging linear cable channels. CEO Brian Roberts supposedly faces an additionally steep hill because of all the anti-Trump propagandizing Comcast's MSNBC has done over the decade. Some still see a sliver of a window. Mr. Roberts might curry favor with Trump by vowing to retain Warner's CNN and nudge it, combined with already owned NBC News, toward more balanced coverage. Remember when President Trump was going to drain the swamp? This is the swamp becoming an ocean. Giants of corporate America, such as Comcast and Netflix, may not be thinking about the best use of the Warner assets. They're thinking about how to slow down a favored behemoth from getting those assets on the Trump-aided cheap. If they want the assets themselves, better suck up to the White House. Even worse are the hard-headed dollars and cents realists of Wall Street who've taken this new reality as a given. Mr. Trump wouldn't be the first president to harness ever-pliable antitrust to political ends. The lack of the customary personal and corporate fig-leafing is what signals a new and different era. Netflix has reportedly reached out to the administration to explain, correctly, why treating it as an incipient subscription streaming monopolist is wrong in the world of YouTube, TikTok, and countless ad-supported streaming competitors. But larger interests are at stake. The U.S. economy functions better when private investors decide how assets should be managed to reward shareholders and please customers. In this regard, the Paramount Ellison crew, even without Trump favoritism, can make a good case for itself. The one factor, ironically, that might bedevil its strong position in the Warner Brothers bidding is the stock market's wavering confidence in the artificial intelligence revolution. Oracle, on which a significant part of the family's wealth depends, has seen a third of its market value go poof in 10 weeks. Why is this an irony? Because the one place where AI hype isn't overhyped is in the recorded entertainment industry. Whether we're talking about computer-generated imagery and screenplays reviving long-dead actors, AI songs on Spotify, or spectacular text-to-video tools like OpenAI's Sora and Google's Veo 3. A case for the Ellisons, with their tech cred, is entirely makeable on the markets, even if they have to pay full prices dictated by the market, without Mr. Trump's alleged thumb on the scale. It is to remember, as this is written, Holman Jenkins is not an enemy of Mr. Trump, but he's calling out what he sees here. Our previous caller, Phil, pointed out that President Trump has been conducting himself in such a way that his approval rating from the American people has been drifting constantly lower, lower, and lower. I make the point that, well, he has to contend with a torrent of negative coverage. That's true. But given that, wouldn't it be reasonable, wouldn't it be intelligent, wouldn't it be politically competent to try to feed this beast as little as possible? I'm reminded of a time many years ago when I was a young man and we had a media that loathed, hated, and abominated Richard Nixon. I mean, they hated Nixon as much as they've ever hated Trump. It was absolutely unbelievable. And Nixon understood that about them. And, now you won't have Nixon to kick around anymore after he lost the governorship of California. Well, of course, that didn't turn out to be true. One thing Nixon shares in common with Trump, a hell of a comeback. From not just one, but two defeats. First for president and then for governor here in California. 6 years later, the guy's elected president of the United States. Amazing. So what's he proceed to do? He understands that the American media wants to hang him. So he hands them a large coil of rope and says, "Here." And the next thing you know, Nixon is resigning his office. Now, so far, I don't know of anything that President Trump has done that constitutes, what Nixon. Nixon abused his office by giving illegal orders to the CIA. Specifically, when the FBI started to investigate the Watergate break-in, Nixon wanted it covered up to protect the people who had been working in his behalf, and so he ordered the Central Intelligence Agency to quash the FBI investigation. Hey, over there at FBI, this is the CIA. Knock it off. You're getting into an area of national security, which of course was a lie. That cost Richard Nixon his job. Now, I can't help but wonder if Donald Trump is aware of that history. I mean, during that period of time, he was otherwise employed. He was busy, building buildings and making deals and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how much Donald Trump knows about that era. And about the fact that, if you give them the rope, they will hang you. The reason Donald Trump survived the Russia accusations was because they weren't true. And of course, Mr. Trump obviously knew they weren't true. So he thumbed his nose at them and kept on doing his job. Excellent. Of course, the political damage that was done to him was real. It didn't force his resignation, but it sure as hell cramped his ability to govern the way he wanted to govern, and it probably was a contributory factor to the loss of the midterms and maybe even to the loss of his second term in 2020. These damaging stories don't have to be true to be, these stories don't have to be true not to be damaging. I'm getting back to the first story that I covered today, which was, the pardon of, what's his name, this drug lord from Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez. That reminds me. I wonder if it's on YouTube. There's a song, Ray McKinley's band recorded. It's called Pancho Maximilian Hernandez, the best president we ever had. I wonder if it's available. If it is, I'll play it for you. This is a kick. Pancho Maximilian Hernandez. Hernandez. Let's see if there's a copy here. Ray McKinley and his orchestra, Pancho Maximilian Hernandez. Check this out.
This is the biggest challenge
an ad here.
Tonight we complete that challenge.
We used to call him Pancho Maximilian Hernandez. He was born in Santa Fernandez, which is slightly south of Morendes. He was the best president we ever had. Though he started up from the bottom, we wasn't glad when we got him, but we're kinda sorry we shot him. He was the best president we ever had. He was the best president we ever had. I think he was the best president we ever had. You think? Till he made the citizens mad. He was the best president we ever had. We was glad when he got elected, though we never suspected he would keep all the tax he collected and then put all his relations on relief. From his head down to his toesies, we'd cover Pancho with roses. Though he stole from under our noses, he got the graft, but the people got the grief. He was the best president we ever had. Ole! He was the best president we ever had. Okay, till he made the citizens mad. He was the best president we ever had.
fishing with a flotilla, and he owned a fabulous villa. But when a friend would turn up, he'd turn him down. And any time the peasants would pester, why, he'd toss a big gay fiesta, and then he'd sneak away and siesta. Esther lived on the other side of town. He was the best president we ever had. He was the best president we ever had, till he made the citizens mad. He was the best president we ever had.
He was the first president, he was the last president. He was the best president we ever had.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Pancho Maximilian Hernandez, the best president we ever had, done by Ray McKinley and his orchestra. Of course, Ray McKinley was a drummer, worked with the Dorsey brothers, and then, of course, with Will Bradley and his orchestra, then had his own band. But McKinley was more than just a drummer. He was also a good entertainer. He was the one who sang the vocal on that record. So all of those lyrics were presented to you by the band leader himself, Ray McKinley. That from 1949, and I have a recorded version, and this was slightly different. You know, it's the same arrangement and everything, but it was a different performance. So there are at least two versions of Pancho Maximilian Hernandez, the best president we ever had. That song is due for a revival. There's no question about that. Got to bring that one back. Lots of fun. Lots of fun. Okay, we have 2 and some odd minutes left. That's an interesting amount of time. How do you deal with 2 minutes on the radio? Well, I guess one thing I could do is decide where I want to go with the next hour and tell you a little about that. I shared Mitch's piece with you about peace through strength and the fact that we do need to have a strong defense budget. Oh, here's something, and this is from the New York Times today. This will give you a laugh. Trump has made the Epstein saga a case study in manipulation. And when I read this, I was wondering now, did they think about the same way I did, that Trump had been, in favor of releasing the documents, then against releasing the documents, and then gone back again in favor of releasing them. So the the New York Times actually recognizes that flip, flop, flip. But, of course, being as knee-jerk anti-Trump as they are, the idea that Mr. Trump did what he did to essentially sucker the Democrats into not only supporting but absolutely demanding the release of these documents. And of course the Times is still expecting, oh well, this is going to put egg all over Trump's face. I don't see how. Everybody knows that he was pally with Epstein years ago when they were both a couple of young bad boys around New York. Long before Epstein was involved in criminal activity, Trump had cut him off. And who's the first banana to fall from the tree here? Larry Summers. Today, what's the story about? Poor Larry Summers has been banned for life by the American Economic Association in a further blow to the former Treasury Secretary and Harvard University president. This was a big guy, and he is literally gone. Larry Summers. Was he in the crosshairs? No, it was Donald Trump. Be careful who you shoot at. You never know who you're going to hit. Okay, it's 11 o'clock. Hour number 3 will come along presently. Larry Summers. Okay. Atlantic Monthly. Journalist reveals shocking Trump messages.
Hi, I'm Dirk Wiggins, a journalist for The Atlantic. Recently, I was added to group text messages on Signal. in which the Trump administration was making secret war plans. At first I was really excited because I've never been invited to be part of a group chat before. But it turns out that they added me by mistake. But the important thing is that I get to reveal to you all of the shocking text messages from the Trump administration. Let's take a look. J.D. Vance, let's proceed with caution. While I acknowledge our responsibility to protect shipping lanes, I don't want America to continue to police the world. Pete Hegseth, bombs away, suckers. Bomb emoji, bomb emoji, bomb emoji. J.D. Vance, haha, classic Pete. J.D. Vance, wait, you didn't actually bomb anyone, did you? Pete Hegseth, grimace emoji, bomb emoji, explosion emoji, eagle emoji, eagle emoji, eagle emoji. Pete Hegseth, I love you guys. Michael Waltz, love you too, brother, no homo. Winky emoji. Steve Witkoff, heart hands emoji. Donald Trump, unsubscribe. Donald Trump, Canada. John Ratcliffe, what? Donald Trump, is this attack chat room? Canada. John Ratcliffe, you want us to bomb Canada? Donald Trump, Greenland, Mexico. Donald Trump, California? Pete Hegseth, sorry guys, missed this. Had a few too many. LOL, drunk face emoji. Pete Hegseth, but yeah, let's bomb Canada. Marco Rubio, great job on the attacks, y'all. Proud of you guys. High five emoji, 100 emoji, dancing woman emoji, painting nails emoji. Pete Hegseth, thanks Marky, hug emoji. Marco Rubio, hugging you right back, bro. Pete Hegseth, my heart is full right now. Smile emoji. Marco Rubio, heart eyes emoji. J.D. Vance, you know you guys can start your own chat. LOL. Donald Trump, how do you get Warp Whistle World 1? Donald Trump, how do you get Warp Whistle World 1 Reddit? Donald Trump, sorry, thought this was Google, LOL. Michael Waltz, LOL. J.D. Vance, crouch on the white block, then run to end of level. Thumbs up emoji. Pete Hegseth, picture of stein full of beer. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, gents. John Ratcliffe, cheers. Steve Witkoff, bro, it's 9 in the morning, LOL. Pete Hegseth, what of we bombed Puerto Rico, LOL. Pete Hegseth, if. John Ratcliffe, dude. Pete Hegseth, haha, I was just kidding. Unless you guys are into it. LOL. Donald Trump, unsubscribe. Marco Rubio did 200 on the bench press this morning. Smile emoji, flex emoji. John Ratcliffe, nice, get it, flex emoji. Tim Waltz, let's get some pics of those biceps. Smile emoji. Pete Hegseth, wait, who added Tim Waltz, LOL? Tim Waltz has left the chat. Both terrifying and horrifying. Now, I'm still in the group chat, so if you want to know more about the Trump administration, keep reading The Atlantic and keep tuning in and keep being my friend. And I'll let you know what they say.
Oh my God. That is so ridiculous. Needless to say, the Babylon Bee is at it again, and this you got most of this with the audio, but the visuals are fairly decent too. The guy who is, Dirk Whitgard or whatever it is, one of their regular players, does a really good job of creating the characterization. Okay, what are we? 2 minutes left. Okay, well, we'll.
Here's another text message. This is the most important one of all. The world is becoming less trustworthy every day. Use the app built for trust, Bunker. Bunker has secure surveillance-free messaging, a password manager, secure cloud storage, and more. Everything you need to protect yourself.
Okay, it's just a damn ad. My mistake.
I'm a journalist. I don't fall for garbage like that. So, do you guys think that was good?
I'm happy with it.
Okay. Oh, hang on. Trump just texted. He's stuck in World 4 now.
Hey, you!
Oh my gosh. It is to laugh. Okay, let's see what we Welcome back once again to the Charles Freedman radio program. News talk from 9 to noon every weekday here on Santa Cruz Voice. Telephone number is 831-265-5050. And one phone caller this time because well, it was interesting. I didn't know whether the program was actually going out or not, so I said, will somebody please call me and let me know? And Phil over there in Sarasota did. Yes, nobody else was willing to step up. Oh, well, that's fine. Just before the top of the hour, I was talking about a New York Times editorial board. So, you know who they are. I'll just share this with you. Given the conspiratorial noise about the Epstein story, we understand why some Americans are tempted to look away at this point. Still, it deserves attention because it's become a case study in the ways President Trump and his aides manipulate the public and abuse power. Even if the Epstein files that the Justice Department must release by December 19th contain no significant revelations about Mr. Trump, the president is already guilty of acting with contempt for the public at nearly every turn in this saga. Now again, if you listened to this program, I guess about a week ago or so, I presented to my knowledge, original theory about this. And the thing that has to be explained is why President Trump switched his position not once but twice. There was a lot made of the fact that finally when there was a discharge petition in the House and a lot of pressure to release the files, Donald Trump finally relented. And on this program, I learned about it on a Monday morning. It turned out the Sunday night before, at sometime in the evening, he had turned around and said, okay, I've changed my mind, release the files. But that wasn't his first change of heart. People who remember watching President Trump's campaign for president last year remember that he was vociferous. Yeah, we need to see these files. The Biden administration has been sitting on all this. We need to get it out, get it public. But then once he got into office, all of a sudden, he switched. And all of a sudden, the cries to publish the Epstein files, this was all a Democratic program, etc. The Times piece, I'll read this here, they actually delineate this. My explanation for it was that President Trump he wanted the documents out. I mean, he knows that he has nothing to fear from them. But he realized that if he released them on his own, their political effect would be nowhere near as important as if the Democrats did it. Now, in response to the New York Times, now the New York Times is all up in the air about this, and they're going to pay close attention. Whereas if Donald Trump had released these documents, they would have buried on page 17. This explains why President Trump wanted the documents released, then he didn't want the documents released in order to, gin up the Democrats. He figured, okay, the Democrats will automatically, reflexively oppose me no matter what I do. I could come out in favor of free beer and they'd say no. So I'm going to oppose the release of the Epstein files. Why? Because I know that if I do, the Democrats will scream to have them released. And they'll go beyond that. They'll say, oh, Donald Trump is all over these things and he doesn't dare have these files become public. And once the Democrats have raised this temperature as far as it can be raised, then I'll just play rope-a-dope. I'll say, okay, fine. Send me the bill, I'll sign it. Done deal. And now, of course, that trap has been sprung. The documents have not all been dropped yet, but as I mentioned before the top of the hour, the first scalp has been claimed. It isn't Donald Trump. It isn't even any member of his political coalition or his administration. No, it's Larry Summers. Larry Summers, who held a cabinet position in the Clinton administration and who has been a stalwart of Democratic politics since, president of Harvard University. He did, it is to be noted, he was rational enough as an economist to point out that Joe Biden's spending blowouts were going to cause inflation. And of course, the progressive left hates him for that. So far as the Elizabeth Warren AOC wing of the party is concerned, they don't give a flying damn about Larry Summers. Let him sink. But the point I'm making here is that the parade of Republicans that they were expecting hasn't materialized. And think about it. Jeffrey Epstein was operating in what city? New York. What's scarce in New York? Republicans. Hell, at the time he was hanging with Epstein, Donald Trump was a Democrat. Almost everybody in New York is a Democrat. Most of the beautiful people are Democrats. So, in my view, what happened here is that Donald Trump executed a very effective and reasonably Machiavellian maneuver. The only thing that mitigates against this is that as president, Donald, what happened here? Well, I'll be damned, there's actually phone calls. What in the hell? Okay, well, let's go ahead and take them. Astonishes me. Hello, Mark, how you doing?
Well, Charlie, of course, going back to that movie Network, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Peter Finch's great line. He won a posthumous Oscar for that.
On your news on the hour, they're talking about new laws being passed and signed into law, coming into effect right now at the beginning of the year in California.
Mm.
And, some of them, fine. Some of them are total nonsensical, and some of them are beyond belief. But I'm pulling over here. One, Assembly Bill 867 makes it illegal to declaw a cat for non-medical reasons. Well, I'm glad they're spending the time, effort, and handling this up there in Sacramento and looking out for my cat. But he doesn't vote. The other one that kind of upsets me is Senate Bill 1053. It makes it illegal for a grocery store to have plastic bags in the produce section. Well, when I buy my broccoli and spinach and such, I like putting it in a plastic bag and then carrying it up to the counter and then taking it home and put it in my refrigerator. So why are they messing with my plastic bag and my buying groceries? But the one that really burns me is right now, public schools in California are in total chaos. The standardized testing is abysmal. They're 17% at grade level in math, 27% in language arts. University of California is accepting graduates who have to take bonehead math at the university level when they come onto the campus there. That's bad enough, but why are these kids getting a high school diploma when they're not at grade level or graduate level in math? They shouldn't get a diploma. It just means that high school diploma is a meaningless document. But the one that really fries me, and like I said, schools in California are economically in bad shape. Our local PVUSD is many millions of dollars out of balancing their budget. They have to lay off 150 to 160 staff members, which includes teachers. But our people up in Sacramento passed SB 760, and our Senator John Laird voted for it. Our Assemblypersons Gail Pellerin, Don Addis voted for this. And it will require schools to provide at least one all-gender restroom for pupil use. So they're going to spend the money creating all-gender bathrooms in every school, including charter schools in the state of California. So they have the money for this, but not for what they're supposed to be doing. Not teaching, not instruction, not any of that. But we're going to build all-gender bathrooms. Go figure.
Well, it sounds like a hell of a way to waste hundreds of millions of dollars, but I was charmed to hear you mention that the idea of giving high school diplomas to people who cannot do high school level work. This is something that I've been harping about on this program for literally decades, and I have often expressed my wish that some clever attorney who is versed in class actions would get together a group of Californians, young men and women who hold diplomas from accredited California high schools and are incompetent, incapable of reading, writing, and arithmeticing, ciphering, whatever you want to call it, at high school level, and demonstrably so, and sue the state of California for fraud because you've presented this diploma that certifies these abilities. The abilities are not there. This is a fraud against these students. They've been told that they have something that they don't have, and so we want recompense. You've wasted our time.
Oh yeah, and our local district brags that we have an 87% graduation rate. No, you don't. You have 87%. You're handling out a meaningless document to, and much to the detriment of the kids who are performing, the kids who are working, the kids who are getting it done.
Yeah.
Their documents are meaningless also.
Exactly.
So but again, the districts are broke, the school systems are broke, and we're going to spend money on creating all-gender bathrooms. And maybe some of these schools do not have pupils that are claiming this, this identity that needs this bathroom. They're going to have to build one anyhow. Why don't they build pits to keep unicorns in, or pins, or whatever? I mean, oh my God, what a waste of money, what a waste of time, and a time when our schools are in crisis. They're focusing on, you got to have an all-gendered bathroom. And again, our local representatives, John Laird, Gail Pellerin, Don Addis, they voted for this.
Oh, I'm sure they did. It's not their money.
Yeah, if they would ever have a town hall where their constituents could speak to them, that'd be great, because I'd come up there and speak to them. But they won't, and they don't, and I can't.
Oh, dear. Well, Merry Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Anyhow, when you bring your groceries home in a paper bag and it falls through the bottom, don't blame me.
Well, it's simple. Quit buying produce.
Yeah. No, that's my living.
I was wondering how far that would get with you.
No, don't. I draw the line of rationality somewhere. That's my deal there. So anyhow, but oh God, if I wish we could speak to our representatives, but they won't meet with us. So we'll go from there. Thanks for the time, Charles.
Thanks for the call, Mark. Have a good day. Let's see here. Let's take a call from Evan. Everybody's waited until the third hour today. Well, maybe that's just the way it works. Hi there.
Hey there, Charles. Thank you so much for taking my call. Great caller, Mr. Mark. Appreciate it. I was laughing to I have my paper bags with holes in them for sure. I'd like to just kind of talk real quick. I guess your Epstein files you were just talking about. Honestly, I don't think we're going to see anything. They're just going to be all redacted, and we're just going to see black lines constantly. But the reason why I kind of called, I liked your song that you had on by Ray McKinley, Best President We Ever Had. And I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on one more ballad of Spiro Agnew, in which I guess was Richard Nixon's vice president.
Yeah.
From what the song represents, I guess he didn't do too much. Your thoughts on that, sir?
I haven't heard the song. Let's see here. If we can find it.
It's a real short thing, 15 seconds or less. Granted, John Denver, I think, does a little bit better, but the song in question...
well, 15 seconds isn't a song, it's a slogan.
Exactly, yes, sir. God, who does it now? I apologize. Let's see here. Tom Paxton did it. 1988, but yeah, wasn't sure. I'm an '84 baby, so I wasn't sure what your thoughts on just Richard Nixon's vice president.
Okay, it says here Spiro Agnew's song, "The Ballad of Spiro Agnew," John Denver. Okay, just for, yeah, you're right. 16 seconds. Okay, well, we can spend 16 seconds. Let's find out.
I've been excited.
Oh, needless to say, there's an ad in front of it. Hang on.
The ultimate guide to rebuilding.
Okay.
I'll sing you a song of Spiro Agnew and all the things he's done.
Oh, okay, I get it. Well, Agnew's an interesting case. You want the whole story. In 1968, when Richard Nixon was running for president again, his primary opposition came from Nelson Rockefeller. Nelson Rockefeller represented the left wing of the Republican Party. Nixon was running with the blessing and support of the people who 4 years ago had nominated Senator Goldwater. So he was running as the conservative, although Nixon was never a doctrinaire conservative. Nevertheless, this is where his political lane is, politically, particularly if you're running against Rockefeller. Spiro Agnew had been elected governor of Maryland in 1966, and by 1968, Agnew had established a reputation as being a pretty good governor, a competent governor. He was a Rockefeller Republican and was, a vocal supporter of Nelson Rockefeller. Well, I guess it was early in 68, everybody expected Nelson Rockefeller to announce his candidacy for president. And Governor Agnew at the state capitol in Annapolis invited all of the press corps, everybody from the Baltimore and Annapolis papers, everybody, come on in and sit in my office with me and we'll all watch Nelson Rockefeller announce for president together. So they did that. And Rockefeller came on TV and announced that at that point he was not a candidate for president of the United States. And there was Agnew with just, custard pie all over his face. I mean, not only had Rockefeller not announced, this was a prominent supporter, a fellow governor. Rockefeller hadn't even given him a heads up, hadn't even called him and informed him of what was going to be happening. So the first thing that we know about Spiro Agnew is that Nelson Rockefeller blindsided and embarrassed him horribly. And this is one of the things that led him to switch his support to Richard Nixon. Nixon picked him as a running mate in an effort to unify the party. After all, Nixon was running, more as a conservative. So what do? You balance the ticket by picking somebody from the Rockefeller wing of the Republican Party. And that was why Spiro Agnew was chosen to be vice president. It was a typical decision. Who do you put on the ticket for vice president? The guy you think can help you win the election. That's almost always true. The only time it ever wasn't true was when George W. Bush picked Dick Cheney. That was very atypical. But every other pick has always been, okay, who could help you win the election? So Nixon and Agnew win the election. Agnew proceeds to become kind of a prehistoric Sarah Palin in that, well, not that he's, as really clueless as she was, but he has a tendency again and again to make comments and say things that are counterproductive politically. And this actually begins during the campaign. Agnew is on the ticket, and the Democrats actually ran a campaign spot. I remember this. They had a picture of Agnew on the screen, and across it says Spiro Agnew for vice president, and the soundtrack was just laughter. The idea that Spiro Agnew was a joke. And so Richard Nixon undoubtedly regretted his choice of Agnew. The choice hurt rather than helped his ticket because of Agnew's political, well, let's be blunt, incompetence. Agnew winds up being a favorite of the right because he comes up with all kinds of figures of speech, some of which he gets from Pat Buchanan. He's the one who described people on the left as nattering nabobs of negativism. The kind of thing that drives the right, the hardcore Trump supporters into absolute paroxysms. But everybody else is either unmoved or outraged. So, as time goes along, Agnew is vice president. He's not really accomplishing much of anything, but then that's not unusual. Most vice presidents don't accomplish anything. During 8 years, Joe Biden.
Yeah, I would think you'd want to. I would think you'd want to have some form of strong person.
Let me finish this. I'm not. We got to tie a pink ribbon on it. The final thing that happened with Spiro Agnew, it developed that during his time as governor of Maryland, he had accepted bribes and kickbacks from contractors doing business with the state of Maryland. And he was going to be prosecuted for this. He pled no contest to the charges and resigned from the office of vice president. At the time he was interviewed about this, he said, geez, I didn't think I'd done anything wrong. All governors of Maryland do that. And that was regarded as more of a comment on the corruption of the state of Maryland than anything else. But Spiro Agnew's final thing on the national stage was to resign on account of charges of malfeasance. So Spiro Agnew is generally regarded as a blot on the pages of American history.
Well, I appreciate it there, Charles. No, yeah. When I was reading 1973 after pleading no contest the tax evasion charges, I wasn't sure about that. You did explain that very thoughtfully. Real quick, back to that, Mark. No, we have so much incompetency in our school system, and those gender bathrooms. Oh my God, what a joke! Appreciate it there, Charles. You have a great rest of your show.
Thank you for the call. Have a great day. Yeah, isn't every day somebody calls and wants to talk about Spiro? One of the people who took up with Spiro Agnew during that period was Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra, and he and Spiro Agnew, and this was at the time when Sinatra was moving away from the Democrats to the Republicans. This was a move that was presaged by John F. Kennedy. In 1960, Mr. Sinatra and the whole Rat Pack went all out to get John Kennedy in the White House. I mean, they just, oh, Kennedy. Of course, Peter Lawford, one of the members of the Rat Pack, was actually married into the Kennedy family. So the whole thing was very, very close. When Kennedy gets elected, of course, Sinatra figures, okay, now I'm going to be a visitor at the White House. This is going to happen. President Kennedy made a visit to California. And instead of staying with Sinatra at Sinatra's house, he stayed with Bing Crosby at Crosby's place. And Crosby was a Republican. Sinatra was incensed, absolutely infuriated. He felt he'd been backstabbed. What it amounted to was that President Kennedy was worried about Frank Sinatra's mob ties. He knew that his dad had made arrangements with Sam Giancana to help him carry Cook County and get elected that way. So anything that tied him to the mob was bad news. And of course, then later he appointed Bobby, his brother, Attorney General, and Bobby made it his business to prosecute the mob. At this point, it's not just Sinatra who feels double-crossed, it's the entire mob that feels double-crossed. Well, that's another story. But Sinatra, after that, gravitated over to the Republicans. When Ronald Reagan became governor of California, of course, Sinatra was Hollywood, Reagan was Hollywood. There was a closeness there. And I think that facilitated the move. But Sinatra became he and Spiro Agnew were golfing buddies. And I remember, you've heard the old song, "The Lady is a Tramp." Sinatra singing, "The Gentleman is a Champ," to Spiro Agnew. That's probably on YouTube somewhere. I know I saw it on television, so there must be a video recording of it somewhere. Anyway, it would be funny to look at it today. Gosh, all of this stuff, past reminiscences. Well, let's get back to what we were talking about here, because I'm interested in what the New York Times editorial board's take on this Epstein thing is going to be. Oh, we need to do our ads. Let's get that out of the way and get back to work.
Handcrafted art, crafts, jewelry, antiques, toys, plus food and so much more. The Holiday Craft and Gift Fair returns just in time for unique shopping this Friday and Saturday, noon till 9 p.m. at the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. Your gift fair admission allows you to walk through Sparky's holiday lights each evening. The Holiday Craft and Gift Fair this Friday and Saturday at the Fairgrounds. Information and tickets available at fairgrounds-foundation.org.
Hey Warren, it's been a while since I've been up to your showroom and garden center in Scotts Valley. Maybe the folks out there might want to know where you are.
Absolutely. To find Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box Company, just head up into beautiful Scotts Valley. We're at 46 El Pueblo Road, next door to Scarborough Lumber and the beautiful nursery. And when it comes to wood items, we have It's All About Wood gift shop. And of course, the Knox Garden Box. Lots to look at. We'd love to see you at Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box store. Okay, thanks, folks.
Get hooked up with affordable cannabis at your locally owned Hook Outlet, where everybody above the age of 21 can participate in the Hook's loyalty program. Each purchase earns you 2% store credit on your next purchase. Get hooked up with the best cannabis at affordable prices at the Hook Outlet in Capitola and Watsonville, or order online at hookoutlet.com. Get hooked up at the Hook.
Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
Satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
Okay, a telephone call has appeared. And as always, that is top priority, so let's talk to Greg. Hi there.
Hey, Charles. A few comments that I wanted to make. Trump's tariffs give the United States leverage, and he's using it for drugs. He's using it for solving wars, decades of being ripped off by other countries. But I like the way he uses it as leverage on different countries. It's very effective. And I hope the Supreme Court doesn't take that tool away from the president. I think he should be able to impose tariffs and take away tariffs and use them as leverage to get our way.
Well, I believe
That's my first.
I would respond to that by saying I can see your point about his use of this as a foreign policy tool, but it is a tax, and in order to levy it, you need congressional approval. Now, if the Congress cares to grant him that authority, that would be a different matter. But constitutionally, I don't think it's permissible. So it'll be interesting to see. Well, the Supreme Court will be ruling on this, and we'll see which of us the court agrees with.
Okay, that's fair enough. I think it should be a president's prerogative to be able to impose tariffs. He's using them very effectively, in my opinion, and if he does end up paying us dividends from some of the money, that will be even better. The other thing I want to say is Minnesota and the fraud that the Somalian population and other people have caused over there. Take note that none of the legacy media gave this billion-dollar plus fraud 1 second of time. Not 1 second on the legacy media.
Right.
About this fraud.
And the fact that investigations and indictments from this go back to 2022. So this is not only a snow job or a what do you want to call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Whitewashing. That's it, a whitewash by the media, but it goes back years.
Yeah, well, Tim himself, I think he knew about it and didn't do anything about it. Just turned his head.
And this was all going on. This was all going on at the same time he was chosen to be a candidate for national office. Once again, the press not having done its job here is really just as big a story as the corruption itself.
Well, yeah, that's a whole. Yeah, I agree. Press doesn't do their job, but not 1 second of time from them, and I just think that's shameful. The other comment I wanted to make is Tennessee. I was glad to see that, of course, the Republican congressperson there won the seat. The margin wasn't as big as I thought it would be. I thought it would be bigger. So,
well, it was what, 9? It was 9 points. What were you looking for?
I was looking for more double digits because she's a shameful lady.
Okay.
The way she talks and everything. But I'm glad the Republican won. But I think we need to really address the affordability issue if we're going to make it in the midterms.
I agree.
That's basically all I had to say. But I was really shocked to see that none of the legacy media covered the fraud. And, I also agree that we should revoke visas from countries that hate us and countries that produce pirates and have Al-Qaeda as their leaders.
Well, today, according to, I don't know if you've seen this yet or not, it just came over, but on Real Clear Politics, there's a note saying that today the Trump administration has paused immigration applications, including green card applications, from 19 countries. And I'm looking here to see if there's a list. It includes Afghanistan and Somalia, but the entire list evidently, here we are, Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti. Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen.
Sierra Leone too. I have news for you. They reported that that's going to go from 19 to almost 30 countries. So I'll be curious to see what else they add to that. But I'm in agreement with that. I'm in agreement with that. We need to tone down. Look at the other European countries.
Yeah, I'm looking at the article here.
Uncontrolled migration.
My God, Cuba. Go ahead.
I'm just all for it. I'm all for that because look what's happened in Minnesota. Look at the fraud that took place, and it's mainly in that Somalian population. So, fake autism diagnosis and services that are not rendered, that are billed for. And I've heard upwards of it could uncover up to $6 billion.
Well, programs that were supposed to be feeding hungry children, and they're stealing the money. Generally, in this country, when people steal from needy children, we look at them as real monsters, and I think we should.
And we should, and the money is going to real monsters back in Somalia, going to terrorist groups. So something's got to be done, and I hope.
Well, bear in mind that Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, is up for re-election next year, and he's already declared that he's running for another term. So it'll be interesting to see if the people of Minnesota decide to turn a blind eye to his malfeasances and retain his services. I'll be watching carefully.
I will be too. Well, Charles, I gotta run. But those are my comments for this Wednesday.
Thank you.
You got it.
Have a good day.
Take care. You too.
Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate that. Let's see what time we still got 17 minutes or so. Let's go ahead and get back to what we're going to do on this. Once again, the words of the New York Times editorial board. If Mr. Trump were any other American president, his personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein would be a major scandal on its own. The two were once friends and enjoyed joking about their reputations for chasing women. He's a lot of fun to be with, Mr. Trump said in a 2002 magazine profile. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Now, bear in mind, this is Donald Trump talking in 2002. At that point, we had only just recently completed the administration of Bill Clinton, about whom all of these things could easily be said, and the New York Times was happy to whitewash Bill Clinton's dalliances. So, if it comes to misusing, mistreating, taking advantage of women, if a Democrat does it, it's fine. If a Republican does it, it's terrible. And they didn't bother at that time mentioning that at that time Donald Trump was a Democrat, as was Jeffrey Epstein. Let's keep reading. In a crude birthday note to Mr. Epstein in 2003, Mr. Trump apparently, the note includes the line, "May every day be another wonderful secret." The two men had a falling out for unclear reasons before Mr. Epstein pleaded guilty in 2008 to charges involving sexual behavior with a 16-year-old girl. So even the Times, bless their little pea-picking hearts, is willing to be honest about the fact that Donald Trump quit being a pal of Epstein before he was ever prosecuted and convicted of any kind of malfeasance. Did Donald Trump know that Epstein was a skirt chaser? Sure he did. Did he know that he was having to do with underage girls? I don't know. There's no proof of it. Mr. Epstein, let me see. In 2019, just as Mr. Epstein's world was collapsing, he wrote an email about Donald Trump. Of course he knew about the girls. by Mr. Trump's 2024 presidential. Now, bear in mind, before we go any further, once again, I have to emphasize, I mentioned Bill Clinton a moment ago. A guy like Donald Trump, who had this very public reputation, would never have been considered presidential timber before Bill Clinton had been elected and served 2 terms. And the big difference, I mean, we've had presidents before who were womanizers. John F. Kennedy evidently grabbed and stabbed everything he could get a hold of. We know we've had presidents who carried on long-term affairs. Warren Harding, Franklin Roosevelt. But the idea that we elect someone knowing that they are being unfaithful to a wife they've given a pledge of loyalty and allegiance to, that had never happened before. People were unaware of FDR's dalliances when he ran for president and while he served. People were unaware of John F. Kennedy's behavior when he ran for president and while he served, because the press corps kept all of that very tightly under wraps. They didn't let anybody know about the hot and cold running women at John F. Kennedy's White House. It came out years later. But with Bill Clinton, it was different. We knew what kind of a scoundrel this guy was on election day. And the Democrats knew what kind of a scoundrel he was when they nominated him. Or at least they certainly should have. There's no excuse for not being aware of this type of behavior since it's been going on for a period of years. Bill Clinton had been governor of Arkansas for more than a decade. And so, for the first time, the American people were presented with and elected a candidate who publicly and right out front had the morals of an alley cat. It's out in the open. Without Bill Clinton to blaze the trail, to clear the way, Donald Trump never gets taken seriously as a presidential candidate, no matter how colorful he is. Because people would simply look at his record of behavior and say, no, this guy isn't presidential timber. But Bill Clinton solved that problem. And Donald Trump, I believe, was smart enough to see it. I believe he was perceptive enough to look at that and say, well, guy with my record, my public persona, hey, if Bill Clinton can run and get elected twice, it's Katie bar the door. By 2024, the presidential campaign, the Epstein case had become a mega obsession. Once again, this is the New York Times. Related to Epstein's associations with people, some of them Democrats. Mr. Trump's campaign was happy to use speculation for political advantage. He indicated he would release the files. J.D. Vance said that releasing the files was important. Donald Trump Jr. speculated his father's opponents were trying to protect those pedophiles. Elon Musk declared part of why Kamala is getting so much support is if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public, and some of those billionaires are afraid of that outcome. Once Mr. Trump got back into the presidency, he had the power to do as he has indicated he would do and order a broad release, but he did not. Okay, so what's your explanation of that, you sages? The timeline is damning. In late February, administration officials invited right-wing influencers to the White House and gave them binders of Epstein documents. Although some attendees were disappointed, they contained little new information. In other words, there really wasn't that much of anything there. This was a publicity stunt. 2 days later, Attorney General Pam Bondi proclaimed Americans would get the full Epstein files with redactions to protect grand jury information and confidential witnesses. Now, Evan earlier said when these documents are released, they're going to look like some of the documents from Vietnam and like that. I wonder if they are extensively redacted to that extent, then obviously the issue won't go away. In March, Ms. Bondi spoke about a truckload of new evidence that her department had recently received. Everything's going to come out to the public, but then the administration changed. This is what has to be taken into account. This is what I told you. They, all of a sudden, Ms. Bondi briefed Mr. Trump that his name appeared in the files. Oh, come on. Donald Trump already knew what he had or had not done vis-a-vis Epstein. Nobody had to tell him. And again, the American people, the people who want to vote for Donald Trump, they don't care. Donald Trump once said I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. This, getting close to Epstein, is a part of that. But again, it appears to me, from everything I've seen, is that Donald Trump got clear of Epstein a long time before any of this hoo-ha came along. Evidently, Larry Summers didn't. Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? The president snapped at reporters. This guy's been talked about for years. He said the Justice Department said, that month the Justice Department said it had no client list and would stop revealing Epstein material. So, once again, yes, the president changed his position. You guys seem to notice that. Don't you know when you're being played, you stupid... You're just so smart you think nobody can play you. But you're easy to play because you hate, loathe, and despise President Trump so much that any position he takes is wrong. If he says release the files, oh, that's wrong. If he says don't release the files, oh, that's wrong. You're pitiful. You're amusing. At least you would be if you weren't so damn dishonest. I mean, Mr. Trump is a rather hard pill to swallow from time to time, but he has been fortunate in the quality of his opposition. You are so damn dumb. At this point, Mr. Trump undertook an aggressive effort to prevent the release of additional information. That's certainly true. After two House members, Ro Khanna of California, Democrat, Thomas Massie, Republican of Kentucky. You remember Thomas Massie, don't you? He's the one who votes against everything. He voted against Trump's bills. He voted against the reconciliation package. He voted, this guy may as well sit with the Democrats. Although, in all fairness, Massie didn't vote for their bills either. Massie is a purist. He's against everything. I've often said on this program that Massie is in the wrong place. He doesn't belong in Congress. He belongs in the clergy. He should get himself a church and be a preacher. That's where his mind is. And how does this fit? Well, Massie's saying, well, we need, there's dirty work afoot. Epstein's a scoundrel. We need to get this out in public. On this, Epstein, or rather Massie's actually lucked into taking the right position. These documents exist. They should be out. Mr. Trump blasted Massie as disloyal, tried to intimidate other Republicans from signing on. He pressured Mike Johnson to use procedural maneuvers to prevent the matter from receiving a vote. He lashed out at social media on past supporters. So yeah, he had to gin this up so that you dummies, would be jumping up and down and screaming, release the files, release the files, release the files. And then what does Mr. Trump do? Like Lucy, he jerks away the football. As it became clear that this discharge position would succeed and the House would pass a bill mandating more disclosure, if Mr. Trump were really determined to prevent that, it would have been possible to simply sit back and do nothing and allow the Senate to kill the bill. If Senator Thune never did anything, never mentioned it, never put it on the calendar, just absolute dead radio silence. And that's how the Epstein file release bill could have been killed. And would have been killed. But that's not That's not what Mr. Trump wanted. Mr. Trump wanted the Democrats to be jubilant and demanding, we win, we get this bill. He signed the bill on November 19th, compelling the Justice Department to release the files within 30 days. The law allows for redaction of victims' information as well as withholding of materials related to national defense or active investigations. We want to emphasize we are conflicted about the release of the files. No, you're not, you mumbling jackasses. Quit lying again. You were dying to have these out. You were screaming to have them out. Now you've got it, and now you say you're conflicted. Oh, I'm not surprised. Now you're thinking a bit, aren't you? Now you're getting the idea that maybe you're hoist on your own petard. Maybe you're as dumb as a stump. Investigative materials are not normally part of the public record for a reason. They typically include a mixture of facts, speculations, and false leads and can unfairly damage reputations. That's what Speaker Johnson was saying too. And you vilified him. Epstein's case is not typical. It suggested a moral rot in America's elite circles because Epstein remained a part of some of these circles long after he had to register as a sex offender. Many of his victims feel betrayed by the justice system, want the files to become public. Even the wisdom of releasing the files is a nuanced issue. Didn't think so before, did you? Mr. Trump's behavior has been indefensible. Oh, yeah, he got away from Epstein. His campaign took advantage of monstrous crimes for his political benefit. What? He misled the public about his dealings with Epstein and his attitude toward the files release. No, he misled you. He politicized the Justice Department on this matter. That's a fair charge. Now the same department will be in charge of redacting the documents. There's every reason to believe the Trump administration will exploit the process. Okay, well, so now, no matter what happens, you're not happy. I get it. I get it. So, well, I guess the one thing we can say, you always look for something nice to say about the New York Times. They just published a fairly extensive expose of the Minnesota Somali scandal. The welfare agencies there that had been skimmed for about $1 billion that we know of so far. And the New York Times has a story that unequivocally and strongly covers this. But as earlier callers have pointed out, where were you when this might have mattered? Where were you when, well, I guess the first indictments came down before Governor Walz was reelected in 2022. Maybe the people of Minnesota could have rid themselves of this cretin 4 years ago if you had done your job, you and the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Once again, the American media comes out of this with no glory whatsoever. Okay, that's just about it for one day. Let me see, today's Wednesday. Okay, Thursday morning, 9:06, bright and early. We'll be back here with another 3 hours of news talk from 9 to noon on the Charles Freedman radio program. Thanks very much for listening, and stay tuned to SantaCruzVoice.com. Okay. 248. 248. Hi, hun.
Hi, sir. I'm taking Faye to Dr. Mayer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
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 All right.